From Mediaite revealed the first pictures emerge of the DNC and RNC pipe bomb suspect. And wait, what? When I first saw this photo, I said, y'all trolling. I think it was Jessica and the other. No, who was it? I think it was Jessica. She pulled it up. And they were like, oh, yeah, the DC pipe bomber was a black dude. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't see that one. You know, we all thought it was that white woman. And then when they posted the picture, I was like, very funny, guys. You're trolling. No, that's actually what the guy looks like. And his name is Brian Cole. He's apparently a 30-year-old. He was arrested. He's the suspect. I don't know what evidence they have just yet. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, he's being charged with, quote, transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce with the intent to kill, injure, or intimidate any individual or unlawfully to damage or destroy any building, vehicle, or other real or personal property, and with attempted malicious destruction by means of fire and explosive materials. Wow. We have the press release here from the DOJ. They say Brian J. Cole Jr. of Woodbridge, Virginia, was arrested this morning and charged with for transporting and planting 2 improvised explosive devices on January 5th, 2021 at the headquarters of both the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee in Washington, D.C. They say the well-being of society rests on our ability of law enforcement to safeguard our citizens, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's what's interesting. This guy ran a bail bonds company to free illegal immigrants, sued the Trump DHS, and worked with a Black Lives Matter lawyer. Sounds like this was an anti-Trumper lefty who was angry at Donald Trump. I don't understand what the motivation is for planting these pipe bombs, however. But if you were anti-Trump and you were trying to, I don't know, frame him and his supporters, perhaps that's the motivation.
I mean, it's... I don't know. We'll see how this actually pans out. They had the other woman they considered a person of interest. I haven't had a chance to dig into this to see what kind of evidence they have on this guy. So, I mean, look, if he's the guy, great. You know, I mean, it's nice to see the DOJ actually making arrests. So hopefully that it is him. But you know, I'm kind of a wait and see. Or I'm kind of at the wait and see.
Feels very on par with the U.S. government for something to take 4+ years to get anything done.
I mean, we talk about, people talk about how they feel like things aren't getting done. And I continuously say, look.
We got a great sponsor. It is Beam Dream. Head over to shopbeam.com, my friends, /Tim and pick up your Beam Dream, your nighttime sleep blend. Helps you sleep better. I drink this stuff every night. I swear by it. It is delicious. It's got melatonin, magnesium, L-theanine. It is fantastic. And right now, you will get their early Black Friday sale, 50% off. I really do think it's fantastic. And this is legit. I do drink it every single night. My sleep improved. I didn't even know it could improve. And now for the past several months, I've been having consistently good sleep. And you guys know that I recently had a baby. So that's pretty impressive. Good stuff, Beam Dream.
The government's slow and the government's sloppy a lot of times, but the reason that they move at the pace that they move is because if they arrest someone and they don't have all their I's dotted and their T's crossed and they actually have the guy, they're going to end up having to let him go, and that's worse than taking a long time.
Yeah, I heard that when they went and arrested him at his house, he asked, "Did I do that?"
Aha.
Hey.
Yeah, there's also a story that, and we'll talk about it in a bit, that they're not going to be re-indicting Letitia James. So this is all just, I don't know. It all seems like...
Who was the other lady that they said, the one that was a suspect before? Who was that lady?
I don't remember her name. It's
there was like
PC cop.
They were saying like the evidence was like that she's bent down to pick something up.
That was what I was saying.
What was it?
Yeah. So the evidence they had that the person was gait analysis.
Yeah.
What I said was, I believe the pipe bomber was a woman because men tend not to bend down at the hips. They bend at the knee. It's because of women's center of gravity. They're more likely to bend down at the hip, what this person does. So, look, I'm not the only one. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to I don't think the FBI is wrong, but I don't necessarily just trust the FBI, whoever's running it. But Kyle Seraphin said, sorry, none of this is legit. I have videos of this man playing with his puppies 5 years ago. He has a rock-solid alibi. Gait analysis is not real. This story is fake news. So what was published before is that it couldn't have been this woman because she has videos of her playing with puppies, which is like the stupidest thing I've ever heard because that's not evidence or an alibi of anything. Like I recorded a video of Phil juggling. That proves he wasn't here on this date. No, it doesn't.
Can't even juggle.
But you can't even prove a date based on a video. That makes no sense. What is she standing in front of a calendar? I just put a fake calendar in front of her, or
I mean, if they have
fake
the
one, an old one.
Wait, you mean if they have the actual video from it, wouldn't the metadata say?
No,
when it
because
was recorded?
metadata can be faked very easily, ridiculously easily. You just change the date on the device you're using. Like you get a camcorder and you set the date wrong, and then film it and be like, oh, look at that, the metadata on the digital file says the date.
So
Like,
there's
that proves it.
So there's no way for the video to exonerate her.
Yeah, no way. I mean, not in today's day and age. To be like, I have a video of, if there's a video, I suppose it could be like surveillance video owned by someone else that's like logged in a security system. That's fine. But how the other question I have, like, wasn't this person out at like midnight, like 1 a.m.?
Yeah. So the idea is like she was playing with puppies in like a lobby somewhere.
Right. But maybe. I mean, to be honest, maybe that's just the way they reported it, and she's actually like in a lobby, and the hotel had security footage. You know, I don't want to make it sound too stupid. Like that one guy who claimed he went to a parking lot, and this proves Turning Point was sending money to a parking lot because I didn't understand what an LLC file to a mailbox is.
At the UPS store.
Right. So I don't want to play conspiratorial games, although maybe our viewership would be a lot better if I just used vagaries and acted like everything was a conspiracy.
Everything is a conspiracy.
It's always. Everyone's out to get you all the time.
That's right.
Well, and the federal government has like an unbelievable track record with prosecutions, right? They almost never lose if they choose to prosecute. So
98% or something.
It is true, but the argument is that it's because they only take cases they know they can win.
Yeah.
So that just means they let criminals go all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And it speaks to the fact that prosecutors aren't actually motivated by finding the person that committed a crime or, making sure that the streets are safe. They're basically political actors, and they may want to make sure that they have the highest, conviction rate that they possibly can. So that way, when they come up for some kind of appointment or some kind of promotion, they can say, look at how great my record is. It doesn't speak to how well they're actually serving the community. It speaks to they're making sure that the people that they select to prosecute are actually, they have them dead to rights. So.
And it sets a basis for them down the road. It sets a precedent. So down the road, they're like, okay, every time we get someone, arrest someone, we're at 95%, 96%.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like I said,
they're, the audience, the people in the world are like, okay, so they're definitely guilty because the feds are so good at what they do.
I mean, yeah, but like I said, I think it's more about politics and personal achievement. They want to be able to say, oh, hey, I'm this successful, and it's not actually representative of whether or not they're finding criminals, whether or not they're serving the community, whether or not they're making their community safer. It's about they are selective in the prosecutions.
it's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum of saying like crime is down in the city, but it's because they choose not to prosecute anybody.
Yeah.
Like they do in D.C.
Or report it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
They've been doing that in a lot of cities, if I understand correctly. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all relatively black pilling. I suppose this story it should be a white pill. I mean, they may have caught the pipe bomber. They've arrested this person. We're learning the motivations. This person appears to be anti-Trump or whatever. So I don't know. I don't have high hopes for the Trump administration and Republicans, and I'm not convinced they're going to get on message to actually win an election. It does feel like everything's just broken apart, and where that leads us, I honestly don't know.
Well, there's like no faith in institutions anymore. So when something like this happens, immediately half the population is conspiratorial and the other half just doesn't trust the government anyways. You don't have that finality anymore that used to exist when people had faith in the government.
It's true, but there's no benefit personally for coming out and saying, yeah, I really agree that they got the guy, I think this is it, and good for them, and blah, blah, blah. There's no social benefit for that. Like, if you're on social media and you say that, the first reply is going to be like, oh, yeah, you just believe everything the FBI says. Yeah. So the skepticism is that people kind of have nowadays. It's almost like a defense mechanism. So that way they're not getting criticized. Pardon me?
Nobody wants to be wrong.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to get caught being wrong, because the worst thing you can be now is to be seen as a fool because you believe something that ended up not being true, or you thought somebody was going to be guilty of something and they ended up not being guilty. So people just hedge their bets and don't.
Well, if you're skeptical, like, no one's going to go and look back 6 months to see if you said something and were wrong. I mean, look at the Ian Carroll stuff about RFK, right? Nobody's going back and talking about that. He said that there was a big scandal coming and had him dead to rights, and there were a bunch of people that were talking about it for a news cycle or two. Nothing materialized.
This is the reality of humanity, I suppose, is that people are typically socially driven. They want to fit in more than anything else. And so you do have this great period of contrarian values, I suppose, maybe constraint's not the right word, but the Trump movement, people basically saying, I'm not going to fall in line to this weird stuff you want me to do. And I don't think it's necessarily because people felt that Trump was right. It was that Democrats wanted them to do something that they didn't feel comfortable doing. So the Democrats tried to move the Overton window too quickly. When they did, it dropped a bunch of people off that platform. Those people are sitting there being like, I'm not going to call a man a woman. They would have, due to social pressure, if it was done more slowly, in my opinion. I think most people would. And the evidence for this is where we currently are with a Republican Party that is now pro-gay marriage, that there are trans and gay Republicans that do advocacy for the GOP. That shows tremendously the Overton window has shifted, and traditional Republican values are long gone.
Yeah.
And what we have now is just more of a populist movement that includes conservatives that are moderate and accepting of gay marriage and transgender individuals. Not completely, but a bit. Now imagine the Republican Party 20 years ago. There's no way. They weren't even for gay marriage.
Yeah.
And that was oh, go ahead.
I was saying neither were for the Democrats. But for the white pill to this, Kash Patel did switch out the leadership on the FBI on this J6 pipe bombing team. He put in new guys because the old team wasn't doing anything good. So he's putting in these new guys on his team that he wants in there, and they finally, they found him.
So they've been working on this for 4 years.
Yeah.
They put in new people, and that's
They cracked the case
screams
instantly.
conspiratorial. That's scary.
I think the sad reality that anybody, if you're interested in truth and what's really going on, the problem is you're going to find that most people are not.
Yeah.
And this is, we're seeing this right now largely with the drama around Candace, of course, and Turning Point USA. We see it in the Democratic Party. People just want to be a part of the crowd. And they're going to, so if you say something that contradicts their worldview, and this is how it's always been, said it before, I'll say it again, that they're going to abandon you. They're going to say, okay, you're no longer in line with the world that I want to be. So it's not about what is true. Certainly, there are things that Joe Biden did that I was like, okay, that's fine. Like he wanted to get rid of credit card, ATM, or overdraft fees or whatever. But there were people that were just, no matter what Trump does, it's wrong. Yes. Now, what I will say is, this is a tendency on the right, and it's a rule on the left. And that's typically why you find a lot of moderates aligned with conservatives. Now, I would say, everything's completely shattered. And it's not just Candace, but she kind of just is the avatar of it. But there are this general MAGA rift between, as you mentioned, like Ian Carroll saying there's a bunch of things. There's nothing. People really want to exist in this conspiracy space for some reason. I suppose it gives them a sense of almost purpose. As woke fades away as the collective enemy, there isn't one, and there needs to be one. And so groups are trying to find who their enemy is, and they'll take whatever they can get. And then you end up with, I guess right now, a bunch of weird stories that don't add up or make sense. And my favorite example is this dude making a video where he's like, why is Turning Point giving $1.4 million to a parking lot? And everyone's like, bro, that's a UPS store. It's an LLC registered to a mailbox. But he's lying intentionally because it generates views, and these people, it's the conspiracy world they want to live in.
Well, it's a side effect of the creator economy, right? Is like the one thing that you have to have when you're in this space is you have to be moving towards something. You have to have a rallying cry. You have to have something that you're working towards so you can build an audience, because they want to feel like they're connecting with you, working towards something. It's like a joke on our channel where I'm like, I'm not here to sell you anything. Literally, I'm just trying to help you kill a couple hours of time today. But the thing is, like, that's actually counterintuitive to what works in these spaces, because most of the time it's you're fighting against a company, you're fighting against a government, you're fighting against an ideology and stuff like that. And for a lot of people, they're just creating, whether it's Ian Carroll or Candace Owens, they've got whoever that they're going against right now, and that's just what works in this space.
I generally think this is a positive thing, though. You just mentioned blackpilling. I actually think it's necessary because we need somebody to hold the Republican Party or any sort of movement on the right accountable, because otherwise we're just going to be this uniform movement. I mean, I'm not a Republican, I'm from Germany, but still, I mean, I observe what's going on in the right-wing movement, and I think it's crucial that we establish some form of individualism so we can keep these conversations going, these discussions going. And you're totally right that it's a problem that we constantly need to have some form of enemy, and it shouldn't be this way because it's a big distraction. And I think it's on purpose. It's kind of like a big psyop, whoever is starting this, whoever is behind this. But as long as we keep the conversation going, as long as we don't censor anyone, because I think that was the biggest threat pre-Trump. everybody was censored who said anything that went against the establishment, against the mainstream narrative, which unfortunately was the most horrific things, like child abuse, literally child abuse. That was becoming a mainstream thing. And we're now going in the other direction. And now in the other direction, we're now realizing that we still have a lot of differences, because that's what defines us. We are individualists. And I think that's a positive thing in a way, because it just shows that we should never get comfortable with any government. My question to you would be, what do you think would be a positive direction? Do you see any hope for the next administration, and who should it be?
I would say there's a toss-up right now. I mean, J.D. Vance seems to be the guy, and he's been doing an amazing job in, look, Trump says he wants the prices of houses to stay stable. He says H-1Bs, he says all these things, and of course that pisses off Gen Z, who are freaking out. J.D. Vance comes out with better messaging saying, no, we got to get the prices of houses down. He pushes back on a lot of the establishment shills. He's willing to be aggressive, but he's got a bit more, I don't know, inline decorum than Trump does. So I'm fairly optimistic on J.D. Vance. The issue that I see largely right now is, now that there's no unified enemy, the right doesn't seem to be focused on what they're fighting for. So for a while, it really does feel like right now the issue was Trump comes out and says, I want to do great things. And a lot of people got behind him because the machine was against him. Now that the machine is largely routed, and the Bud Light failing a couple years ago, and all the things afterwards, now people are kind of like, well, I don't know, people just, this is it. Nick Fuentes, is Tucker Carlson. My view of it is kind of, people were supporting Trump and the things behind Trump more so because the left was attacking Trump. Now that the left is largely destroyed, the right is splitting up and pointing in random directions. And instead of saying, hey, guys, we've got an immigration fight to complete, you have the principal faction that is still very much Trump can do no wrong, and the media attacking him as the deep state, things like this. But then you get this other faction that is anti-Trump. Nick Fuentes is not a big Trump guy. He wants to unite with the left. You have this growing group that is largely just anti-Israel. They found a new enemy. This is the enemy. It's the true enemy. And so I'm sitting here being like, are we actually focused on winning for any particular reason? It seems like the right is broken up into a bunch of different pieces, and there is no unified vision of what post-midterms or post-2028 should be looking like.
Because there would be that's literally too many things to name, right? Is it immigration? Is it the price of groceries? Is it Israel? There's too many different things for people to consider the problem for everybody to unite around how to fix it. When it was the left, it was that. It was everything is encompassed under the left's rule. Now it's a bunch of issues that just largely affect all Americans, and they don't have a way of aiming that in a specific direction.
I think the best way to be successful is to focus on things like the economy and immigration. Those are two things that the economy, definitely everybody can get behind the idea of, we need to have a booming economy. We need to have an economy that's successful because it's the only way we can manage the debt. I don't know that we can even fix the debt problem that we have, but we're certainly not going to be able to manage it unless we have a vibrant, growing economy. And you're talking about, like, to be realistic, it's going to have to be really, really booming, 3-4% to actually control the situation with the debt. And I think immigration is something that most Americans get behind as well. When Trump was running, it was a 75% agreed about immigration, something like that. It was super high, and now maybe it's lower because people see ICE on social media. They see people protesting, and so maybe they're getting a little squishy. But it's still a winner for the Republican Party. So if they focus on those two things, I think immigration and the economy are actual winners, and everything else I think is honestly a distraction. The fact that people are paying attention to all this stuff, I think, is because they don't see the results in the economy or in immigration. Even though immigration, the Department of Homeland Security would say that there's been 2 million people that have deported and self-deported since Donald Trump took office, which is cool. It's not enough, obviously, but it's cool. That still doesn't satisfy the people that are like, nothing ever gets fixed. So
thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.